Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Heaven on Earth. I'm really glad that you're here to join with us because these conversations are really important and we're just growing and learning so much. So welcome, 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 welcome. And also welcome. Hello, Melissa Mills. How are you doing today? My special, beautiful psychic medium, modern medium to the stars. How are you doing today?
Modern medium to the dead stars, right? I love it.
That's so important.
I feel super blessed. Wasn't Donella Meadows just incredible with her knowledge and really enriching our perspective of the animal kingdom compared to the plant kingdom compared to the animal kingdom. Oh my goodness, I just feel like I look at my foods with such a different light, and I just feel like, for me, I look at plants now and I go, they're actually intelligent. They're more intelligent than maybe what we are. So I just loved her so much and what she had to share. So I think she would be a really good video for you to watch with Anne Wigmore. I feel those two together would just make so much sense. So I'm super excited. I love this work so much, and I'm very grateful to you, Joanne, and just how much you care for those who are watching these videos with us and including them in this process. So I can't wait to see who we're going to do today. So do you think it deserves a drum roll? Like,
they all deserve your drum rolls.
I don't know. I feel like I just want to be like, do 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 do. Like, I don't know what sound effects it is today. So, like, whoop whoop. So yeah, who are we going to chat with today?
Lovely. I just love how real we are, and just it's so special. You can be such a professional and have such amazing skills, but you're just so relatable, Melissa. This is why we all love you so much. And yes, that video of Donella was unbelievable. Like, my joy is my garden, but now I understand why. So I have gone twice and maybe 3 times to a garden centre since that video, and have just been like, I'm loving myself, I'm finding my joy. Anyway,
I loved, just sorry to interrupt, I loved when you said, like, my strawberries taste the best because my kids sing to the strawberries, and I'm like, like, imagine if all the foods we ate, the farmers would talk to the plants with love, and like, just how much better our bodies would feel. So anyway, my love,
like a group hug to all the farmers and all the producers out there that are making sure that our crops are produced the best way, and considering the environment and what we eat, and anyway, all the love. So today, anyway, we are going to have a very interesting conversation. It would be really great if, Melissa, we can connect with Paul Walker and have a conversation with him. I think he is going to be a very extraordinary, blessed soul for us to share his experience with, and his journey and the afterlife. So I think he's got a very valid conversation to have. Actually, wasn't he in one of your polls, Melissa?
Yeah, he was. I feel that's gonna, I don't know how I'm gonna cope with this one, actually. I think this one is like, I'm already feeling like my heartstrings being pulled at. It was a poll between Heath Ledger and Paul Walker, and there wasn't really much in it. So I'm really excited to speak with him. He would
It would give you a limit for how many hugs he gives you for the time. We'll just pause it.
I really don't feel it like necessarily in that sense. I just think, what a beautiful human being he was. I think a lot of us probably saw him in movies like, the Fast and the Furious, but I mean, he did so many other things apart from all of that. So I'm so excited. I feel so honored. Let me tune in with him and see what happens.
Okay. Yes. And I can tell you about the plants I've just purchased. So they are just sharing with the world. Dahlias are my new madness right now. I'm super excited. So I'm just looking forward to planting them, and just beautiful flowers. And Daphne is out right now because when we're filming, it's winter so in New Zealand. So Daphne, I've got about 8 of those plants in my garden, and the smell is just so delicious. It's quite a citrusy smell. So um, very fresh and lovely. So I kind of like this time of year for my garden, but not so much for the cold. But anyway, that's enough about me. How's it going, Melissa?
I love your plants. I think we've just been blessed. What I love, just, Paul is here already, and I need to kind of just give myself a minute. I actually think probably this is probably the one I'm going to get really emotional in. I don't know why, but I love that this is not just a spiritual classroom. I love that it's a classroom that we actually get to learn knowledge as well. Like, I just look at the people we've talked to, and I'm like, wow, I now understand more about cooking. I understand more about plants. I understand so much more about being an athlete and, all these things that I personally wouldn't get to learn about. So this is not just a spiritual classroom. This is Conversations is a classroom for everybody. So if I can take the moment to really do Paul Walker the justice, as his energy is merging with mine, is such a heartfelt person. I feel like everything that he kind of does, everything that he, I'm like, why can't he be my husband? I just, no offense, honey, you're great, but I just feel like there's such a warmness, and I don't know how else to do that justice. There's just so much heart with him, and he kind of just wants to get straight into it, in the sense of talking about his experience, about being in the afterlife, and what it's kind of like. And he talks about it being so unexpected, and not being ready for entering the spirit world. And so I asked him, like, were you afraid when it happened? Like, I mean, I think we can all remember this shocking news of him passing. I can't exactly necessarily remember what I was doing, but I remember when it hit, all social media and all our screens. And I mean, how does that feel? How does it feel to have your passing, broadcasted like that, when, and that's what I'm asking him, when you yourself didn't necessarily know it was going to happen. Yeah. And he goes, from what I get, it's a really surreal feeling. It's such a, I haven't even quite adjusted to being in the afterlife yet, and everyone's kind of, already wanting to deconstruct it all. And, and he goes, it was actually quite invasive. He says it was really invasive. He talks about how, he's glad we've taken the time to actually give the permission to connect with him. He says a lot of people wanted to connect with him, and he talks about how really invasive that was. And he talks about how, this is a journey that I don't want to say we robbed him of, but I kind of feel like he's saying, it's like, I just needed to get to the next stage. And it's like, yeah, I feel a lot of, I want to say, like, mediums kind of looked into his energy, kind of like all of that kind of stuff. And he says, I'm a really private person. And it just felt, Yeah, I don't know how to put that. How would I explain that, Joanne? I just
Is there, I don't know how to explain it, but is there a time zone, time limit for this kind of connection? Like I have heard some people say you can get it instantly, and I have heard other people say there needs to be, like, I know, I'm assuming it's different for every person. And I'm also really sorry to hear that his privacy was invaded, because I would imagine, we've got, gated communities for the famous people and, rich people. When I think, you can protect yourself quite a lot. And then when you're a spirit, you must feel so vulnerable. It's not,
yeah.
I'm not cool with that. Yeah.
I think that's a really good way to explain it is, you do go from having this privacy to now being open for everybody. And he talks about how for him, it's like, I'm only just adjusting to the fact that I'm in spirit and people are already trying to get me. It's like, kind of just let me settle, kind of like, let me work out like how to reach my family, how to do all that kind of stuff. And he goes, I understand it's because answers needed to be given and everything like that. But he kind of just wants us to remember, that he is also somebody's family. He's also somebody's family, and he deserves to have that. So in terms of answering your question about the time frame, he goes, he's maybe not necessarily, the person to define all the time zones and everything like that. But what he says to me is, it's nice to give that period to settle in. He says it's actually quite nice to have that period of adjustment and everything like that. And so I want to know what it's, I can't even remember what I asked you in terms of that, but what's it like when, the whole world is mourning your death? Like, how does that feel? And he looks at us with his big blue eyes, right? And he's just like, but I'm just me. Like, I'm not any different to anybody else. Like, I feel he's so humble, so humble. He's such a gentleman. He's kind of like, I might have a job where people might know who I am, but it's like, I'm no different to anyone else who's lost a husband or anyone else who has lost a son. It's like he goes, my passing is no less important or, not less significant than anybody else's, and so maybe
was it an exit point that he did pass, or?
What I got, Joanne, is that it was a surprise. So I actually, from what I get with him, this was not a predestined exit point at all. What I ask is, were the other people involved? Was it their exit points? And it's kind of like, yeah, it feels like there might have been exit points for those. I know there was another gentleman in the car, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I feel like that came to like an exit point. I don't think he passed though, that person, right? I can't even remember. I'm so focused on that. But it's like the question mark around the exit point wasn't his. It was not his. So I'm like, well, why didn't you come back? And he talks about he just couldn't. His physical body there was no body to come back to. And I'm like, well, are you at peace? Like, are you at peace now? Like, with what you've accomplished? And he goes, his life, what he gives me is that he loved his life. He absolutely loved his life and the people in it and the experiences that he had. And he talks about how, a lot of the challenges that he had was really like internal. I think we've heard a lot of people talk about that, how there are a lot of internal challenges. But he goes, his life was just beautiful, but he says his life now is also beautiful. So it's kind of like there's not any regrets. There's not any like, oh, I wish I was still here kind of thing. Because he goes, what I'm doing now is also really beautiful. Like he appreciates it. And I kind of wonder if you're going to ask, did you believe in the afterlife?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I did. Yeah, because he was raised religious, and he kind of veered off that track when he was a child. So it would be interesting to hear what he felt like. I guess so many questions. I guess he wasn't prepared to die. So, what was his belief when he was alive, or what was going to happen in the afterlife?
Yeah, I think I will definitely ask it. I want to ask also the question, like, what's it like when you know like when you're not prepared for it to happen? Like, what's it also like, right? So I asked him about what's your views on the afterlife, and he goes, he's really not sure what he thought. He says, I'm not gonna lie, Melissa, like, I don't know if I was really convinced about the afterlife when I was alive, like I'm not sure. He says, like, when I was alive, I'm really not sure about it. But he goes, now that I'm here, it's like, I want my family to believe in the afterlife. Like, I really want my family to believe in the afterlife so that they can feel me and be with me, is really what I feel. And, I do. He says to me, so many people try to connect with him. He says so many people try to connect with him, and he says he's that type of person that he wants to. He doesn't want to disappoint people, and I feel what a beautiful person he is. But it's like, it shouldn't be a given. Like, I should, in a way, it's like, I don't know. I don't know, because I don't sit here and go, yeah, I'm going to talk with all these people all day long. We have this format, and we've given a lot of respect with conversations in terms of what we do with this. And he just says to me, he wishes a lot more people would take that care.
Yeah. I feel so violated for him. It's disgusting. That's horrible. We've always tried to be really cautious of respecting the spirits and hold back our own silly humor. And I've failed quite a few times in these, and I've always sort of apologized to the spirit, because there's absolutely no intent of being horrible, just being a goofball. But can you put up the boundaries? Can he just say, hi, thanks, I'm okay, goodbye? Like, being a people pleaser in spirit must be really difficult when you're, perceived as a very intriguing person to connect with.
You know what I feel with him is, because he's such a sweetheart, and he is, like, when he looks at you with those blue eyes, it's kind of like, oh, I'm like, you can't blame us, Paul. I mean, you were a gift from the heavens, really. But he says it doesn't just happen to him. He says it happens to a lot of people up there, that there isn't that. I think you've put it so well, Joe, in the sense that you said, when they're living, they've got their security, they've got everything. And now that they're not, they are vulnerable, they are open, because the afterlife is open to everybody, right? And he says, we do choose who we go to. He says we do choose who we go to, But it says it's really hard when I kind of just want to get on with being with my family and doing the things that I'm supposed to do here, when people keep calling me.
Yeah. Yeah, no. What is it called when you like? Can you like do the missed call thing? I don't know. Oh no, I'm busy. I
Yeah, and
don't.
I think, what a valid point. Like, it's not. I mean, I fully respect. I never go around like in the supermarket and be like, "Oh yeah, your mum's here" or whatever. Like, I fully respect people's privacy. I think that's really important. But he says, um, in some ways, it's like his energy keeps being pulled. Like, and but he doesn't want to be like, "Oh no," he's just so polite. He's just so like, yeah. It's like, stop trying to connect with Paul Walker and leave him to do his thing. He's fine being here with us. He goes, you know, he goes, he actually wants to be here. He says he's really grateful for the opportunity to get to speak with not just you and I, Joe, but to get to speak to everybody who watches this. And he says, for him, in this unexpected passing, he actually goes, it was a really good thing. Like, he says, I wouldn't have thought so at the time, but actually being here in the afterlife is it's where I need to be. It's where how can I put it? It's like, even though he had no plans, he's like, I was still filming. He says, he says there's so many like movie contracts that he has still signed that he, not necessarily to do with the Fast and Furious franchise. He talks about independent. He actually talks about how, there was I'm just going off tangent because this is what's happening, but he talks about how there was actually an independent, what do you call it?
Documentary.
I don't know if it's a documentary, but like sometimes these movies don't make it onto like the Hollywood screen.
Yeah.
What do you call those kind of movies?
So the independent movies. So
Something
not
like that.
not supported by big studios. Yeah.
Yeah. So he actually had some independent work that he had started, that he'd had the what do you call this, the scripts
Yeah.
for. Thank you. That he was also working on. And so, it's like he had so much to live for. He had so much to share. And he goes, I've always been a storyteller. I've always been really good at stories. He goes, he actually was really good at English at school as well. Like, he loved creative writing. He goes, that's something that he eventually wanted to get into, was actually writing, what do you call them? Manuscripts?
Yeah.
Is that what you call them?
Yeah.
That's what he wanted to really get into. And he says that he did actually start to be involved in that process as well, and wanting to kind of take the role of being behind the camera. And so, he says, I had so much to live for that, he says at first it was really hard going into spirit in this way. It was really hard. And he says to me, I'm like, well, what's it like when you pass in that way? And he goes, I didn't feel it. He says, I have no recollection of how my body, how can I put this in a...
He didn't get to see his body.
He could see it.
Okay.
He could see it happening, but he didn't experience it per se, right? So, I mean, we all know, passed in a car accident, car blew up kind of thing, right? Yeah. But it's like he didn't experience his physical body going through that. He did watch it, and this is why he says I couldn't come back in.
Yeah.
Even when he's kind of like, what he shows me is when, how some people go, they had like a near-death experience, right? And it's kind of like, people go, say, go to the white light. I'm like, is there a white light? He goes, there's no white light. I'm like, it's not a white light. It's like a tunnel, he says. It's a tunnel. And he actually goes like, when you're he says it doesn't matter if it's an accident or let's say like a heart attack, or when there's that sudden aspect where it's not known somebody's going to pass. He goes, you kind of hover. There's kind of like this. He says you're not on your own. He goes, it's kind of like your guides and the council and everybody's kind of like they're gathered with you, and it's kind of like you decide as a collective whether or not you're kind of going back into your body. And he says he got to be in that space for a little while. I don't know how else to explain that. I see it visually in my mind, so I hope that makes sense. It's kind of like you're not in the afterlife, you're not on earth, you're kind of like in this. I have heard
people do in those horrible situations, and most deaths, I guess, you never feel the pain of it because your soul gets taken out of your body by your support system team, and that's why I think a lot of people need to hear from a lot of people who are still grieving from their family and friends who have passed in not peaceful ways, that they actually don't feel it, that their souls get taken out before their body actually experiences that pain. So sorry.
Yeah, no, that's totally true. It's kind of like, I guess some people say, oh, maybe the spirit is stuck. Spirits aren't ever stuck, right? But what I feel is kind of like there's like a limbo area, and this is kind of like where that is. So this is where you go when you kind of decide, is there a light? And he goes, it might seem like it's a white light because it's so angelic. Such an angelic, all the angels, everything's kind of down with you. And so it's so bright because of their essence. And he talks about how the council, I've never heard this before, so I'm really excited to learn something new, but it's kind of like the council, those who you might have signed your life contract with, come and are there with you. I always kind of believed your loved ones greet you, right? But he talks about how there's your your team, like you said, your team is there and they gather and they kind of help you to make that decision as to whether or not you're going to come back. And he did want to come back, but there was just nothing to really come back to. And he goes, and then I'm like, well, George Michael said you need to love yourself before you can go. So, was that something that you experienced? And he says it wasn't as instant as how can I explain it? Making that transition, he stayed in that kind of space for what in human time might feel like a few weeks, but it feels pretty quick in the afterlife. And this is why he talks about people were trying to connect with him. And this was what made it more challenging for him to kind of go, yeah, I fully love myself. I can fully go. So I guess this is the space he's kind of explaining to us is potentially the space where people think that spirits get stuck. But It's not stuck. It's kind of like, maybe like, I don't know what to call it, but kind of the place where maybe before the gate opens and you get to go into the afterlife, it's kind of like this in-between stage where you can very easily float in and out of the into earth a lot more easier than being in the afterlife. So yeah, he says it wasn't as instant for him to go because of all of that and the mourning and because there was just so much. He says, oh my goodness, there was just so much attention to his passing, so much. So he says that does have an effect. That does have an effect on you feeling comfortable to go. He says it's not about it's like I just didn't feel like I had the right to go.
Because everyone's taking from you, like everyone's mourning from you, so you aren't able to focus on your own feelings and self. That's Okay, well, I really want to hear what important stuff he's doing in the afterlife. And I also am curious to find out what an important life he had previously to this. And also kind of what was his soul mission if he I don't think he done the best work that he was supposed to be doing. So is there going to be a new life that's coming? There's so many questions. And again, I want to just clarify, he's only going to tell Melissa the stuff that he wants to share. So we're not going to pry, and he's already set the boundaries. So, and Melissa's
Yeah.
really respectful. Yeah.
I'm pretty relaxed, you know, like I feel like he does feel comfortable with me. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just saying, like, you know, I really honor him and what he wants to share. He doesn't want to talk about his like his private life as his private life. Like, he doesn't want to go into that. He doesn't, I think something that he really wants to say is he doesn't have any remorse to his friend that was driving. You know, like he does not have any ill feelings. He does understand that was, you know, it's kind of part of what had to happen. And so he goes, he's not the type of person that would hold any anger or any hate or anything like that. So he says really his mission in life, right, was to experience joy. He says it was to experience joy. He really makes me feel in some ways that it actually wasn't easy for him to find his funny side. He was really awkward. He was really, like, growing up in some ways, he was kind of awkward. He says he makes me laugh. He goes, I hadn't quite grown into my body, and it was like, I was so awkward, and you know, and he actually makes me laugh because I was actually terrible with girls, surprisingly. And it's like, you know, growing up, you know, when he was who he was, he couldn't get them off really. But, you know, it's like, he just goes, if you were to see photos, my high school photos, you might look differently at me, he says. But he goes, you know, finding joy. So he gives me that, you know, people used to tease him and people used to, you know, not necessarily have the best outlook towards him. And so he goes, it was finding his joy was that freedom of embracing himself. And that's something that it took into his early adulthood to kind of find that rhythm, to find that groove. He says, I tried to really fit in as to what everyone else wanted me to be because I was so awkward. It's so funny, right? I'm like, I don't know. But he just says that he just didn't quite, how can I explain it? He just gives me that he wasn't quite into his body, you know, like, I don't know. I imagine men mature older than women, right? In terms of growing. But he's like, yeah, it was. So for him to experience joy, he's very close with his family, like his parents. And, you know, it's like, he says, we're a really close family. And so they always kind of helped him through. And for him, it was to experience joy. And he says, once I learned to experience joy, it was helping others to experience joy. And he goes, I feel like I did that. I feel like I helped other people to figure out what their joys are. And he does say that he was a little bit of like a thrill seeker. A little bit like, I feel he would be that guy that would do like the world's craziest roller coaster or something. Do you know, like, he goes, once he found that joy, it's like, I'm not afraid of things anymore. Yeah. It's like, it kind of reminds me of like what a few of them have said about, you know, not buying into that fear. So he says he experienced a lot of judgment. He experienced a lot of people saying that he wouldn't achieve things. And, you know, so he says he had to go through all of that too. In terms of past lives, he goes, I really didn't think I believed in that stuff when I was alive. It's okay, Paul. You're forgiven. He goes, yeah, I don't know if I what I really believed. It's like, it's okay. But he shows me, interestingly enough, is probably why he has the blue eyes, but I feel he was a Viking. Okay. I feel like he was I don't know what you would call it. So I feel like he was a shipbuilder, ship, like, and I feel like this is in the reign of like the Vikings in England. And I feel like he was, I feel this is still him as a man. And I feel like he would, I'm like, I do feel that, I'm not sure of the era, right? But if we look at the program Vikings, it's past that. It's past the Vikings, with Ragnar. It's not that era. It's past that. It's when the Vikings ruled England and France for a while. And I feel that's what he was. He was a shipbuilder. And so he gives me that, for him, that strong connection with the earth was really important. And he talks about, of course, Vikings being really into their spirituality, but he talks about how they'd lost way with that because they'd brought in more of the Christianity. And so there was that confusion as to kind of like what he was. So that's the past life he shows me, which I guess makes sense why he's got the gorgeous blue eyes, right? But he was a Viking. Isn't that cool? And he says this is why he liked to tinker. Okay, so in this lifetime, he says he always liked to pull things apart. And I'm, not just saying with cars, but I feel like even he'd be that kind of person that would be able to build a computer, or, like he always liked to tinker. And I feel he brought that ability from that past life of being the boat builder.
Kind of cool. What is his current mission in the afterlife, if he wants to share that with us?
I'll feel into that. He gives me having a really strong connection with what would you call that? I don't know what to call it. He's very environmentally focused. Like I feel like a lot of them, right? I feel like he has, I don't know what you would call them, but like I imagine places like the Grand Canyon and all those kinds of places. Like, I don't know what you call those places. Where there are parts of the world, I feel like he is part of people that are going to assist when the world starts to geographically change. So I don't know what to call him, but I very much see the Grand Canyon like collapsing. Like, I don't know what I mean by that.
If we look at the maps that Dolores Cannon had written or drew up when she was alive, you can see what's going to happen to the states. So it's quite different, very, very different. So, and how?
So I don't know what you call someone like that, but he is kind of there to assist when that because he says it's already happening. It's already happening, like changes. Like he shows me like underground how things are changing, and it's kind of, I don't know how to explain it.
A lot more earthquakes these days than I think we ever used to, and we're tracking them a bit more. But deep, like places that have never really had earthquakes before, they're getting a lot more significant ones.
Joanne, there must be something significant about the Grand Canyon, because he keeps showing me the Grand Canyon.
Okay.
So, I mean, I don't know. I've never been to the Grand Canyon. Maybe I should go before it no longer exists, right? But he talks about the collapse, and you know, yeah. But it's not because like from what I get, it's not because someone's like put something under there to make it collapse. It's like the earth itself in its rumbling is actually going to shift. So he goes, that's kind of what he is helping is he's part of that. And he goes, it's because this will be part of when he comes back to earth, he will be part of like when human beings have to learn to survive with how he goes, we've done this already. He says human beings have already adapted when this happened, when we all kind of like earth went different places, right? And he talks about how in his next life, he's got to understand it now, because in his next life, he will be part of the people that help humanity to survive. Ain't that cool?
Yeah.
So even though it's got nothing to do with him being an actor and everything like that, he's kind of like, he's preparing for himself for his next life, and he's got to understand what's happening. So that's what he's doing.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, that's really intriguing. So much information that I didn't expect that we would learn today, which has been really cool, because I actually have been questioning so much about the time frame from when someone has passed, and I really appreciate this conversation with you, Paul, and of course with you, Melissa. How wonderful. Does he have a message to humanity that he wants to share with us?
I feel like from what I get with him, because he is just such a sweetheart, like I don't feel he wants to hurt anybody, like I really don't see him. He makes me laugh. It's probably why I was never the tough guy. I'm like, oh, you did kind of play the tough guy, but he actually, I actually feel like he wants to really I really feel like I want to reach out to my family. Like his family's so important. And I feel like his brothers and his parents and his children and, like I feel like I've got a wife as well. I'm not sure if they were married, but I want to call her my wife. And it's like how important family is. He talks about how he just wouldn't be who he is if it wasn't for his family, and I don't know if that's necessarily a message to humanity, but it's like unity. It's about unity. It's about, I feel his message is kind of like, uniting together, being strong. You don't have to do this on your own, like you've got people around you. I think that's really important. And I just see just how much gratitude he has. That he goes, even though, people are invading my privacy, he does have a lot of gratitude for how much we do love him, and what he did. So I feel like his message, I just feel his heart. It's like lead with your heart. Follow your heart. Follow your heart. It's like follow your joy, follow. Yeah, I feel like follow your heart is very much what I want him to share with us. He's just so beautiful. Such a...
Oh, it's wonderful. Okay, well, Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate the lessons that you provided for us, Paul. I really appreciate that. And thank you very much, Melissa, for being able to help with that. I'll say goodbye, and thank you very much again. It's been really, really a blessing.
Thank you. So thank you so much, Paul, and to everybody. And live your joy, and just know that, aren't we just blessed to have mediumship, but let's fully respect the gift that is mediumship. Let's honor Let's really honor the privacy and the respect that, you know, our loved ones do need. So everybody, lots of love from me, Melissa Mills, and thank you so much, Paul. I've learned so much from you, and may you be set free on to do your mission, and exciting to see that you're going to help humanity next time round. So peace out, everybody. Thank you so much for this incredible journey that is Conversations with Heaven on Earth. Bye, team.